So we're going to talk about this writing desk I found at a thrift store the other day.
Yes, you did a video on it, and a lot of people have probably seen that one.
Yeah, and it was like really nicely made, and it obviously was intended as some kind of a writing box. Or I've also found out they're also called slope desks or slope boxes because there has a slope. And also,
you can use
somebody
it to write.
told me the best name I've ever heard for this, and it's called the Luddite's laptop. Anyway, so I made a couple alterations to it. I put a couple partitions in it, and as you can see with me, I fill things with junk. Right?
What is this?
Looks pretty good. Now then, this video isn't about this box. It's about what I did with this box after I put the partitions in. I measured everything. I went downstairs into my workshop. I sort of looked at the box, got all these measurements together, and I put another box together on my own, and I'm going to show you how to do this, okay?
So then you can have your own box.
Yeah, you can make your own box. I'm going to break down the parts I used. Now, here is what I've come up with. As you see, it's not finished, and it's not even glued together. It's just sort of, ready to finish.
I just want to say, we can technically call this video DIY laptop.
Do it yourself.
Laptop.
Luddite laptop.
Yes,
So,
and people will be like, ooh, it's a make your own laptop.
Yeah. Now what I did was I went to the lumber store, and I got a piece of knotty pine. Actually, what it was is shelving pine. It had a lot of knots in it, and I used the parts that were pretty clean. And so I got a board. It was 1 inch by 10 inch by 8 feet, and that was actually left me enough wood to probably do another box. So I could probably get 2 or more boxes out of that one board, right? So anyway, well,
not too much material to make a very nice box.
Yeah, so it's 3/4, and the box that I found was a 1/2 inch. So if you have a planer, you can thin out your sheets. But this is the simplest way to do it. And here comes the cat because she's always helpful.
Scout, please don't stand on the box.
Yeah. Now, the one I found at the thrift shop, and the cat is really helpful. The one I found at the thrift shop, they had routered a slot in the top. Now, I don't have a router. I don't really need one for my work. I'm a picture framer, and I don't use one. I used to have one. I think I gave it away, or it broke. I can't remember. And what I've done is cut 1/4 inch pieces of pine, just left over from the job I was doing. And I'm going to glue these on the top of this board here so that you can set pens or pencils or little erasers or anything in there that you might... In between those so I've made a groove, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Now, the tools you need for this are, well, I have a table saw. Almost all my cutting was done on a table saw. Yeah. But if you had like a skill saw or even a hand saw, you could probably cut the pine fairly easily.
Yes.
There's no real fancy cuts. The other thing you need is a power drill and a power hand sander. But you could also use a sanding block or hand plane, things like that to smooth it out. Now this is really rough.
Use sandpaper as well.
Yeah, you could use sandpaper. But this is really rough at the moment, and I've just sort of tacked it together. The other tools you will need are right here. This is a strap hanger. It's used in furniture making. I use it in picture framing. It allows you to strap vise an object together without having to do it several times because there are 4 90-degree angles. The other thing you need is a power drill. But you probably, if you have
could use a hand drill.
If you have a hand drill, you can do it.
Knocked over a lamp.
And also, you probably need a cat. Yeah, you need a cat because she's knocking over lamps. And
that's a very important step.
And as you see, our videos quickly go sideways because...
A nice drill.
Okay, yeah. And these are bar clamps. You probably...
Very useful.
Very useful for when I'm gluing this piece together onto the backboard. I'll use the bar clamps for any angles like that. Now then, we're going to quickly show you how this all went together. So, this is the biggest piece of pine right here, and it is 13 3/8 by 8 3/8. And I'm going to
We
measure
can-
everything, and
We can put them in like the description
Yeah.
of the video so that you can.
what I'm going to do
Do
after
it.
this is I'm going to measure everything out, and I'm going to draw up a template, so to speak, or just a description. I'll measure everything out, and I'm going to put it on my community page on my YouTube channel. So
Okay.
you can go there, and you can look at the parts you need, and I'll have the measurements, and it's fairly straightforward. The other thing you need, and I often use this is 3/16 doweling. And I use this in place of rather than using nails. Like when I make a picture frame, I never use a nail. If I'm joining something, I quite often use splines or doweling just to hold things together. And you also
just kind of drill a hole and then tap it together with some
If you look up here, you can see that I've used the doweling for the hinge. And that's fairly straightforward, and it works really well. So that just moves very nicely on the hinge.
And you can always kind of trim that off if you don't.
So when you're using your drill, it's a 3/16 bit. I like the part that has a little point on it so you can set that easily and it doesn't wander. I forget what that's called, that point. I used to know. I used to know many things. So yeah, so you need, when you're cutting, these little 1/4 by 1/4 strips. You can cut that by hand. Once you get the cut, run these through a table saw. You can use just a knife to trim them to fit.
And really, those aren't even completely necessary. If you'd prefer it without, then you don't have to put them on.
Now the dowlings aren't glued in yet. As you can see, they just pull out. When I do that, I might just actually leave, they'll be cut flush to the side, so it's nice and tidy. You could probably glue them into the lid, and then it'll never wander. So that's the writing plate right there, writing desk part right here.
That's
and
probably
inside,
like one of the most important parts.
And inside you can see I've made some partitions.
And you don't need those as well.
You don't need those. You could also put as many in as you want. If you wanted a box like this and it holds, say, like a bunch of washi tape or ink bottles, you could have ink bottles here and a few writing paper here. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, you can adjust it to fit your need.
Yeah, and this is fairly straightforward to make. So, but I'll include measurements for those. You might just want one, just off to the side. That's up to you. You might just want to leave it empty like this. So that piece goes up here, and when this is where I'll join it. When that's where I'll use the bar clamps when I'm joining this part together. And so we're going to undo this, and I'm going to quickly show you a few of the parts. It all falls apart because it's not glued up yet.
Yes.
And I'll use carpenter's glue when I'm doing this, and everything will be clamped. And when you glue something and you clamp it, leave it for 24 hours because you'll get a bond that's very strong. And so I'm going to move some parts. So the bottom of the box is just 3/16 furniture grade plywood. You can get this at any hardware store. Any like Home Depot carries this. You can buy it in 24 by 24 sheets. They're like $15, but you can cut that down to your size. And this plywood is 15 inches by 10.5. So that essentially is your base. That's the bottom of the box.
So everything else is based off of that.
Yeah. You're going to need, this is the front right here. And I chose a piece that had a nice knot, so I'm going to glue that in here when it's done. And this piece here, of course, goes up here at the back of the box. But these are essentially the same size. So you need two pieces. We're going to measure that. 2 1/4 right here by 13.5. Now I'll draw all this out and I'll tell you how many pieces you need and so on. Other part you need is this piece here, and it is 13.5 by 3 3/4. And this is essentially the back of the box. It goes at the back, right? This part will be on top of it like this, and that's the back of the box. Then you need two sides. So what you first cut is a piece or 2 pieces. This is 4 5/8. And 10 3/8.
And you can always try to scale this up a bit if you needed
Yeah,
to.
but you don't want it too large.
You'd have to
because
be
the pleasure of this is that it's a small box.
Yeah.
You can sit on your lap and you can just write notes or cards. You can sit on your deck and have a...
You could scale it up or down,
Yeah.
is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
you
if
just
you want
have
it.
to do a bit
Yeah.
of math.
Yeah. So you need 2 pieces of this, right? And what you do is you cut it, and this part here is 3 inches. So you cut 2 boards, 4 5/8 by 3 3/8. And this part right here is 2 1/2. So what you do is you mark 2 1/2, you mark 3, you take a ruler, you run a line, then you cut off the piece that you don't need right here. The hardest part of the whole thing is lining up the holes for your hinge.
Yeah.
Now,
What you could do is just set them
Yeah.
on top of each other, find the distance you need, and then drill through both of them
Yeah.
at once.
I made an overlap on mine, on my lid, so that it just sort of hangs over the edge. But you kind of have to eyeball it a bit. And what I did was I measured this board, so it's 3/4. It's hard to show you how to do this, but my limited camera skills.
You measure.
So 3/8. 3/8 on the side. You draw a line through your board.
And then you figure out how far down that board is.
Mm-hmm.
How far down that is. And then you can transfer that measurement onto.
So you end up with so you're drawing a line. And I think that was 8 inches from this end here. Yeah, 8 inches. So I just did a little cross right here, and I drilled my hole. So this hole is 8 inches from here, and that allows you an overlap. But I'll give you the measurements. And then I drilled these 2 at the same time. I just put them together like this, sort of held them firmly, used my power drill, went straight down, and that is essentially 2 3/4 right here from the back. Now a lot of this, as you cut it, you are going to have to do some cleaning up after you get all this put together. But what this does is allows you to put a dowling in here, right? And I use my power drill with the same bit, and that creates the hinge. And that flows really nicely. Other thing I did, just to make the opening and closing of the box a little easier, I rounded this edge off, the back side off, just with my sander. I didn't use anything fancy. I just took my power hand sander, and I sort of rolled it back and forth across the back of the board until I got it relatively nice. You know, I'm not making high quality furniture with this box.
We're just
It's
making
a practical, useful
nice
object that you can make at home as a fun project.
Yeah.
And then what I do, when I'm gluing it all up, essentially, after it's all glued together,
I don't know you're gonna knock everything over.
it's kind of really helpful. Essentially, when everything is all glued together, what I do, everything will be sort of left overnight when it's all used. I'll use carpenter's glue. I just sort of spread it along the edge, smooth it out, and I glue it all together so the box will be nice and tight. And you don't actually probably have to do this, but what I will do is use my doweling again, right? Use pieces of doweling as nails.
So you can drill a hole on both ends.
Yeah.
And then
so
kind
I'll
of
measure
put
like
glue.
when
and
I'm joining this part together. Right, this will all be glued together. I'll probably put 3 doweling in this just so it looks nice, and I'll measure it from here, and I'll put one right in the middle. Drill down, drop a bead of glue into the hole, and just tap a doweling into it. Cut it off, sand it down so it looks nice.
Which adds a lot more strength since it has more
Yeah.
surface area covered with glue
It
held together.
offers strength. But you know what? If you clamp something with good quality carpenter's glue, that join should be stronger
Yeah.
than the wood it's joining.
That is why I've learned in woodworking class.
Yeah.
Glue stronger than
Glue is stronger than the wood in many cases. It just gives it a little bit more, but over time things expand and contract, right? And glue does sort of age. So if it ever became brittle or dry, it will still hold together. Right? So that is how you make. And the cat is really interested in this project. That is how you make
even though it's the one thing that we
fountain
really
pen
can't have
writing box, or a slope writing box, or a luddite's laptop. I think I like the term
Laptop.
Luddite laptop the best.
Luddite laptop.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll draw all these measurements out. I'll put them on my community section of my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And I hope this was helpful.
Yeah.
And you know what? After I get it all glued up too, there are some things I'm going to do. Like this section here, I might just take my sander and round that down a bit so it looks nicer.
And if
you could add strips of different colored wood if you had some oak or something.
You could paint the whole box.
And you know,
do whatever you like.
Yeah. The original box was probably stained.
Yeah, just.
And has just a light varnish on it. Or it might have actually just had a light varnish on it. Wood over time darkens up, depending where it's stored and used. So it gets a nice patina. You could put like a wax on it.
You can do what you like.
I think what I will do is probably keep it fairly natural. And I might put just a light stain on it.
Yeah. If any of you make this box, tell us in the comments.
Yes. So that'll turn sort of a nice honey brown over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I hope you like this video. If it's helpful, I'm very happy to be helpful.
Yeah.
If you're new to the channel, I'd love it if you subscribe. We're always doing weird products like this, or projects like this. We have a cat that's very enthusiastic. Pen Kid 2 here is very helpful.
Yes.
And give us a thumbs up, and I hope you're having a great day.
Yeah, and if you make it, tell us in the comments.
And also, have you ever upcycled something for your own use that you could use in your fountain pen hobby? Have you found things at thrift stores that you've made into things, sewing boxes, china, or the boxes that you get silverware in? Some people make those. Cigar boxes.
Curious.
Yeah. How do you store your fountain pen stuff?
Yeah.
Do you have a writing box that you use when you're writing outside?
To know.
We want to know.
Yeah.
All
So,
right.
have a great day, everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.